Hi, welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. Now, I've been looking at can't remember quite how I arrived at that. You know, one of the things about YouTube and about Facebook is that you follow this and then go to that, and then it gives you a link to this, and then finally you end up somewhere where you can never find your way back to. Well, I was looking at this particular video, and in the comments of that video I found this one particular man who had been in the Philippines for quite a number of years, had no intention of going home, was totally illegal. He was let me see, what was he? I think that he was certainly retirement age, and he had a 22-year-old sexy girlfriend. His philosophy was that he had no intention of returning. I think it was to the US, and so he had his ATM card. He was able to get his money. The SSS sent his money every time, and all he had to do was keep the letters going. His friends knew where to get him on Facebook and on email. As long as he kept out of trouble, his view was that no one would ever come looking for him. And this actually is true. That in the Philippines, especially if you live in the province where things are so quiet. I mean, in the province of Bohol, right now, you can ride a motorcycle along the national highway without lights. You can ride with 6 other people on the bike with you, which might include 2 infants and a baby in arms. You can do all of this, and unless you happen to go up against one of the checkpoints, which only happen when there is something else going on, like a visiting celebrity, maybe not celebrity, maybe politician, or there's some voting is going on, and they need to up security. No one ever will bother you. I had a piece of paper for my driver's license, and I had that for, I think it was 2 years. I used to go into the LTO and I would say, "Is my license here yet?" And after a couple of times in there, the man wrote on my license a phone number, and he said, "To save you coming in, why don't you just give us a ring on that and we'll tell you whether your license is there." But he said, "I can tell you, it's not likely to be any time soon." And he kicked with his toe, he towed a big box that was there, that was sealed up. And at that time, he said, "That's where the licenses are, and we haven't got to them yet." Now later, this all changed, and when I finally went in, they said, "Come in after your birthday." When I finally went in, they were all set up with a computer, and you sat in front of the computer. It had a monitor that went your way, and they did it quickly and professionally. Everything that you told them was written on the screen. You got to okay it, and then they said, "Go sit over there," and about 5 or 6 minutes later, a card was spat out of the machine, and it was your license. So things changed. But this man is saying that he is totally illegal. He has this very young, sexy girlfriend who apparently is able to take care of financially, and he sees no reason to be legal. Now, what I wanted to tell this guy was that once when Beth and I were driving along, and we were near Trinidad, and this aged man with Alzheimer's, as it turned out, stepped in front of the truck, and we all but avoided him, and yet at the last moment we touched him and he fell down. So we took him to hospital, and then after the hospital we took him to the police station to find out where on earth he lived. And the policeman asked for our documents, and excuse me, it just happened that the registration on the truck was 1 day overdue. And we had said, well, nobody cares. And the policeman said, I see that you're a day out. Go in and attend to that into the LTO and get it done. And here's the reason why. He said, no one will ever question it. He's a foreigner. No one will ever stop you. No one will ever query you. He said, until something goes wrong. And then if you're out on the road and someone gets hurt, or really badly hurt, or possibly killed, if someone dies and things are not in order, then you're in trouble. He is talking to Beth. He says he will be in a lot of trouble. So now we keep things. After that, we don't let things go. We're just riding around in really between Tagbilaran and Talibon, and if we have anything that has to be done, we tend to drive straight to the ICM mall. We leave the truck there and we get a tricycle, and so we don't even challenge the busy street traffic of Tagbilaran. But that was a good lesson for me, and it made me think about this man, because this man was flying in the face of the change that is gradually happening. Like right now, because in our little town of Talibon, we've now got a Jollibee. Now, I'm sure that a lot of you are saying, oh, wow, that's progress for you, a Jollibee. Oh, good God. But it is progress, because it came as part of an Alturas expansion into the city, which took over a great deal of the street organization. Parking was disrupted. We were not allowed to park here one day, and then there was a one-way street, and it was really difficult for a while, all because of this one company that was bringing so much incredible change to that small town. Now, apparently, as we've seen on one of the boards, they are about to go into the fish market and take an entrance into the fish market and reclaim. Is it called reclaiming when they go out and they push out into the ocean? And the pictures of what they have planned for going out through an entrance and exit in the fish market is huge. It's going to bring, probably, for all I know, hundreds, maybe thousands of jobs. It will bring all kinds of change to the infrastructure. And since the Alturas started with their new store, things have already changed. Now we have hundreds of tricycles, whereas they didn't have hundreds of tricycles. On some days you can actually stand in the road around the 4 or 5 o'clock and you can watch tricycle after tricycle, and it just goes on and on and on and on. Hundreds. Also, there are countless places that sell stores that sell motorcycles. There are literally, at any given time in Taliban, there are thousands of motorcycles that are for sale. So change is going to come. They're talking on Bohol especially about building bridges which will connect Bohol to other islands. Now, when Beth and I drove our ancient Volkswagen Beetle down from Luzon, we came across 2 ferries. So we were able to drive down to the port of one island, get on a ferry, connect to another island, Leyte I think it was, and then we drove across Leyte and we ended up at the port that would take us, I believe, let me see, to Ubay, which is on Bohol. Now imagine how much quicker it will be when there's a bridge, just like in Florida, like they've done in Florida. And they probably will get the Chinese to come in and do that, and the Chinese are excellent bridge builders. So things are going to change, and people like this man who thinks that he can just quietly go underground and never be found is probably going to be in a big shock. Now, you might remember Alan, the Canadian who was not a Canadian, and remember that he was, I think, either 3 or 4 years out of status. And his excuse, his story was that he had given all the money that would be required to keep his visa in status to someone he trusted, who had then spent the money on themselves. And they didn't do any of the required extensions, which is just simply not true, because I think you have to do that or go through and have somebody who is qualified in some way to do it. Anyway, it didn't get done and he was out of status. I'm not sure whether the fact that he was helped to get out of the country by our subscriber, Little Bit Rich, and a couple of his fellow Canadians who were Canadians, and he left. Now, whether he will ever be able to come back in the next 10 years, I'm really not sure. So, as he is not married, but has been married, and for all we know may still be married and just not yet divorced, I don't know whether he will ever be able to get his girlfriend and child to Canada. Who knows? That's probably another video. But there's a case of where everything was going fine and nobody could find him until he wanted to do something, and then he had to own up, and that's when he got in trouble with the authorities and they wanted him out. So this man, along with anyone who is out there who thinks that they can just quietly not renew, is in for a lot of trouble. They probably will lose their place here. When I say place, I don't mean what they own or live in or whatever. I mean that it will be bad. Some time ago I heard that President Duterte was going to go after the illegals, of which apparently there's over 1 million illegal expats living in this country, and he was going to go after them, and he had said that he would have the same attitude to them as to drug dealers, in that if you were into drugs, if you gave yourself up and said, I'm into drugs, please can you help me, they would help you. I don't know how far that went, by the way, but apparently that was the idea. And as long as you gave yourself up and quit, then you were okay and they would help you. Well, apparently the couple of years ago that I learned this, I actually heard that they were willing to work with you if you came in and said, look, I'm out of status, I'm sorry, what can we do? Can you help me? And they would help you. Whether people generally took that in the same, well, I don't know whether it was released officially. I mean, the drug thing was official, wasn't it? The Duterte actually said if you don't come in and you resist arrest, you could be killed. I think that was the gist of his threat there. So this man should actually change. He should go, and I would say he needs to readdress things. So that was my trying to take a lesson from something that I heard, and to make sure. I only ever went out of status once, and that was by mistake. I thought when I came back in the country and I renewed after the first freebie, the freebie 30 day or 29 day, and I renewed after that. I never looked at the renewal. I thought it was for 2 months, the same as all of my others had the previous 3 years. But it wasn't. It was when you renew for the first, it's only for 1 month. And then when you renew for the second time, you can renew for 2 months. And I've heard, don't know how true it is, but I've heard that you can renew for more than that. So I found out when I went to renew again, after 2 months, I found out that I was a month overdue. I explained, well, that's it. And they said, well, there's a penalty, 1,000 pesos I think it caused me. And that was it. Thanks for looking in. This is A Foreigner in the Philippines. Best to keep up to status. Bye for now.